Lorin Sookool. She arrived on the professional scene in 2014. Since then, Lorin has favored the pursuit of work that's fulfilling and also extends her skills as a dancer, choreographer, and facilitator. She gathers much of her inspiration from personal experiences, the South African socio-political landscape, and matters relating to individual and collective spiritual growth. She graduated with a Bachelor of Music and Dance from the University of Cape Town, and soon after she started working at the Playhouse Company and at the Forgotten Angle Theatre. She has performed for a number of local choreographers on local and international stages. And since 2017, she has been working independently. Here's one of your quotes. I enjoy dance, teaching. I am particularly interested in how the dance movement may be used as a tool for facilitation. Welcome to our living room. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. There's a bit of a cold front in Cape Town at the moment. Other than that, I'm fine. How are you?
We're dialing in from Singapore and it's quite hot out here. When I read your resume, I just said, I need to talk to this person. Who are you, right? Ever since you graduated in late 2013, you've been working nonstop. And I'm very glad that we have you as part of our first cohort. So welcome again to our living room. Why don't we start from the beginning? Tell me what it was like for you to grow up in Johannesburg. Was dance always around you when you were a little child?
So the way I started dancing was that I was in the reception section of a school. So I was 5 years old, and every Friday I noticed these girls getting dressed up in these like pink outfits and then going off to the big school. And then one Friday I just decided to follow them. And discovered a ballet class that was the coolest thing to me because the ballet teacher invited me to join in. And yeah, I was just blown away by like this new way of using my body, and how we got to use our imagination and play in the ballet class.
You just
yeah, I just went with. I was just like, I want to see what's up, So I don't have a typical story of mom putting me to ballet or anything like. No, I actually found that thing, or it found me rather. And like a year later, I started modern dance, hip hop, gymnastics, tap dance. All the studio stuff. With their yearly shows and competitions and all of that stuff. So dance was always a part of my life from 5 years old. Right up until matric, and then I was faced with the decision of what am I going to study, and I just thought I can't imagine my life without dancing, so I'm going to study dance.
Did you always get support from your family when you made that decision, or were they like, oh, we were expecting you to be a lawyer or something like that?
They said both things, exactly. My parents were like, so I wanted to be a doctor, and I'd always said I wanted to be a doctor, and my folks were like, ecstatic about that. Imagine the first doctor of the family, and the first child to study as well in the family. And then, when I changed my mind, my mom and my stepdad they were fine with it. They were totally 100% supportive as long as I got a degree in it. That was the only thing. So no, no. My mom's always been a social worker. My stepdad he previously was working in the Marines, so he traveled the world through on the ships. So he's very much open-minded, and my mom was always artistically inclined and always about people. So when my dance work started becoming quite involved with the community, my mom was very proud of that fact, So I've always had my parents' support, which I'm really grateful for, because you really need that in in going into this industry because it's tough, you know. So to have your parents behind you, it's a blessing. Yeah.
Who were your influencers when you were a child? Like, who did you look up to when it came to dance? Who inspired you, or what music inspired you the most?
I would say my modern dance teacher she played a huge role in cultivating my love for dance and also keeping me dancing because when I was 13, finances became pretty tough in the family and I had to pull out of ballet classes. But my modern dance teacher was like, absolutely no way, you are not pulling out of class, you will stay, you will dance for free, it's fine. And for the next 5 years, I didn't pay any tuition fees. If there were dancers, like great dancers, like coming from USA, like so you think you can dance people. When they would come to South Africa, there'd always be one bursary given in the dance studio, and I always got the bursary. So that led to me being inspired by these international dancers. And yeah, when it came to making my dance film video to apply for UCT in Cape Town, my teacher helped me with that. Her name's Desiree van der Spey, by the way. And yeah, I really do feel if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be dancing because, you know, I wouldn't have afforded the classes, so I wouldn't have gone, and it just wouldn't have happened. So she's like pivotal in helping make this thing a real thing for me.
We all need that in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what is the Playhouse Company?
Playhouse Company is an agency of the South African Arts and Culture Department. Um, we have a theatre in each province, and the Playhouse Company is the provincial theatre in KwaZulu-Natal, which is where I'm from, and that is on the east coast of South Africa. So I was studying over here in Cape Town on the western coast of South Africa. When I got my degree, I went back home and eventually found work at the Playhouse, which is crazy cool because that's like, you know, the place to be at. It was the place to be at the time. So yeah, it was like a dance residency. We danced from 9 to 5 every day. We worked towards seasons. They invited choreographers from different parts of South Africa to work with us. We created our own shows. We worked in schools and communities. So it was a full-time job for about 2.5 years.
What's the main thing they gave you? What did you learn from your time there? Your main lesson from being at the Playhouse Company?
I would say just how much blood, sweat, and tears goes into this work. The hours and hours of work that you have to go through to get to the pinnacle, the product, the final outcome. How much is involved in the process of putting something together, and how you really need to be self-driven, you need self-discipline, and bucketfuls of passion.
And then you went into the Forgotten Angle Theater. What's the Forgotten Angle Theater?
The Forgotten Angle Collaborative Theatre is a dance company based in Gauteng, specifically Mpumalanga, which is another of our provinces. It's based in rural Mpumalanga, so the studio is actually on a cattle farm. And the company their main focuses at the time that I was there, because I was there for a 1-year fixed term contract. We would train every day. We would teach each other. We had invited guest teachers and choreographers, and then we do extensive teaching, outreach teaching, working in disability centers, schools, lots of traveling on the dirt road every day, sometimes driving for an hour to go teach at a school. And yeah, I feel like my work at the Playhouse really prepared me for that work. But what I really got from that work at the Forgotten Angle was the reality of the South African reality in sort of off-centered spaces, rural spaces. I saw poverty, like right there. I saw also what dance could do in that space. And I saw how dance could be used as a tool to uplift the spirits of people in those spaces and help bring them together, through community work, dance shows, festivals. They have an annual rural public festival. So yeah, that company, Shuf, they do a lot in the vicinity of Malanga.
I want to talk about colored conversations, but before we go into colored conversations, I think last time we had a conversation with the whole team, you were clarifying what colored meant to you or within the South African context. So can we clarify that, and then can we talk about the work you did with the colored conversations?
The South African socio-political landscape has been complicated. I'm sure you're aware of our previous governing system, apartheid, and then 1994 sort of liberation and turning into a democratic state. And now here we are in this post-democratic state. Previously, through apartheid, racial groups were groups according to color of skin and other really crazy ways of defining races. So the main racial groups were white, African, black, Indian, other, and colored. And colored itself was divided into another 6 subgroups because they couldn't quite figure us out. And yeah, it's really complicated and touchy to talk about. But there have been some sort of social unrest experienced among colored people in recent times. There's this general statement that, colored people they're the forgotten ones in the Rainbow Nation because previously we were not white enough and now we are not black enough. And it's a simplistic thing to say, but I do feel that there is a deep-seated sense of alienation that is evident in that statement. And I, as an artist, do not have the answers. I do not know which is the way to go or what to do about it. But I do believe that we should unpack this feeling and unpack this thing that has been called colored. How do we feel about it? What constitutes colored identity? In an effort to become more cognizant of our reality as colored people and to engage with ourselves critically as we grow as a nation, as we grow as a supposedly rainbow democratic nation.
And I think it's incredible how these things play in your subconscious mind. I'm thinking specifically today, gay marriage was approved in Costa Rica. And I didn't realize until today that this is the first time in my life that I feel fully part of my society, integrated into I didn't even know the harm it was doing to me, right? The fact that somebody else had to take that decision or had to make an opinion about it, right? So obviously, different context, but it's this thing that it's conversations that need to happen, like you say. It's things that need to be unpacked. that you don't even know they are there sometimes, and they go from a generation to
Even if it feels uncomfortable to have those conversations, because even with the situation in Costa Rica, it would have never gotten to that position if conversations weren't had prior to that, you know?
Absolutely. I was shocked. For example, I think last January we were in San Francisco, and I was walking through El Castro, and on the streets of El Castro, I'm walking, and I see this information about a woman, and it says Costa Rican artist Chavela Vargas. I didn't even know about her. In my own society, she was an outcast. She had to go to uh, Mexico, and she did amazing things in the world of music. And she was Frida Kahlo's lover, and it was. I never thought of her like in my upbringing. I never had her. I never had her as a mirror of someone who,
Mm,
I don't know, a Pedro Almodovar would admire, right?
mm,
And in that moment in San Francisco, I just felt like, wow, they took that away from me. And she died in exile in Mexico because she never felt welcome back at home. So yeah, it's she took like the short end of the stick, and she did amazing things with it. But I'm pretty shocked that it took, it was not. There's no museums about her. There's no statues about her. They're not
mhm,
teaching about her in the schools, and they truly should. But enough
mhm.
about that. Let's talk about the color conversations. uh, how did you come into that? Was this part of the Forgotten Theater?
Well, I can say that um, my time at the Forgotten Angle Theatre Collaborative got me thinking a bit more along socio-political lines.
Hmm.
Got me thinking a bit deeper about how systems have been set up, how they are now, and how they play out in our own lives and in our consciousness, you know? Colored conversations came about through the awareness of the aged due to my mom's work with the aged. She works at, she was working at the Association for the Aged, which is this sort of governmental body that um, takes in senior citizen residents and helps them, gives them a place to stay and food to eat that is in accordance with the budget that they receive as pensioners. Yeah, I just started asking her a lot of questions. I visited some of the homes, and I just became interested in these elderly people as really walking libraries, you know? They have so many stories to share. They want to share their stories. If you start talking about them, about their stories, they don't stop talking about their stories. They have a lot to share, man, and they want to share. So I took this kind of new interest, this new awareness, and I coupled that with my growing interest on colored identity politics.
Hmm.
And together with my collaborator, Jerome Stoffels, we designed a project in which we would look at the situation of a group of elderly colored citizens living in Wentworth, which was a previously colored allocated area, quite a disadvantaged area and notorious for its kind of violence and, you know, all those things that are characteristic of lower rung socioeconomic areas. And we thought, you know, let's talk about their experiences as senior citizens in the space. What was life like before 94? What is life like now? What is Wentworth like before and now? Um, and what do they have to say about colored identity? So yeah, that's why the project is called the Forgotten Ones, because you know often in this fast-paced youth orientated society we forget about our elderly. So we wanted to bring them to focus and hear their stories, and at the same time try to unpack this idea of colored identity politics and what it is. Because I'm a dancer, I used dance during our 5 week process. So we meet, we talk, and then we dance. They teach me some of the steps from their times, and I teach them steps from our times. And then my collaborator is a photographer. Uh, Through our discussions, we kind of like pull out certain things, and in the end, we built a sort of like a set where we did a photographic exhibition of them. And then by the end of the 5-week project, we invited the community to come in and sit in on this conversation and participate in the conversation. And we exhibited the work, and we also showed the film, the music video like film that is actually up on YouTube now. It's called Colored Conversations, the Forgotten One. And yeah, it was quite a success. I think there were over 200 people that came through that day, which we didn't expect at all, and which just further highlighted the interest in the topic and the need to unpack the topic, whether I or we, whoever I'm working with, feel equipped or not, whether we, we have to kind of mute that imposter syndrome. And we just try to unpack this thing via artistic means.
Can you use music that's modern, or do you mix modern music and also music from their youth?
Well, I'm just recalling now our session. In the actual process, we mix it up. We use all sorts of music from everywhere. And then the actual video is set to one of our local kind of like top rap artists. His name is AKA. He's got this song called Jiga, which is like very funky. And yeah, we set it to that.
Before your eyes. In a girl like you, I see my old design. And the way I feel for you, give me the strength.
I love the video on your portfolio where the ladies are getting on their vans and they start doing. But there is this woman in a green dress on a cane, and I don't know how old she is, but she cannot walk. But she has a smile on that face that goes to the screen, and she's dancing. She is dancing, but she's sitting on a chair. That is
Granny Nora became the hit of that video. She can't walk so well anymore. But when it came to her chant, her scene in the video, she actually stood up a little bit and she's doing all her little moves,
She looks incredible.
Yeah, and then we put them in vans because the whole point was also to create this intergenerational conversation. So these ladies in their beautiful outfits, but then with these like really cool youth-orientated like band shoes, aesthetically it kind of like brought that idea together as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful project. And then I know that you were also in the middle of a project called Mix Not Diluted, and then COVID-19 hit. Tell me what's Mix Not Diluted, and enlighten me about what's the reality of Mozambique and how you're using your art to bring healing there too.
So I went to Mozambique in November last year. There's this incredible dance festival that happens every second year called Kinani, which means dance. And I mingled a lot, and I met a lot of young artists there, including some racially mixed artists. And yeah, we had some conversations about their experiences as racially mixed Mozambican. And yeah, there's some similarities there of feeling not quite enough of something. And there's so many different layers that come into play with that, like gender, class, language, and which side of the family you grew up with. But there's something there that I think is also evident in the non-homogeneous colored identity group. And in the project, I wanted to find what those similarities were beyond racial stereotyping and racial like classing, So it's actually quite an ambitious project, but I wanted to see what this idea of in between was like beyond the South African um, colored identity story. You know what I mean? I was going to go to Mozambique, and some people that I met there were going to introduce me to more people, and we're going to talk about this thing, and then we're going to come together, find the movement and musical aspects of these things that we've discovered or talked about, and then essentially work towards creating a new work. But yes, COVID-19 has reared its ugly head, and now we're here. But you should stay tuned because I must find another way to conduct the project, and I will.
Yeah, and how important is that you said, when people don't feel enough, or how important it is to feel enough, right?
Mm,
That's something that it's true in the reality of South Africa, it's true in the reality of Latin America, it's true in the European reality, right? Just to think
right.
that you're enough, and that you can become a dancer, you can become whatever it is that you want. But
Or you belong. Just you belong and you deserve to be here. And it doesn't matter what race, color, creed, sexuality, ability, disability, it doesn't matter. And this is the thing that's always, it underlines my thoughts about the project that I'm trying to do. It's the fact that at the end of the day, all these separations don't matter. All these physical separations, they don't matter really, because we're human and we're breathing and we're here, and that's it. And it doesn't matter. But these conversations are important. And so, as uncomfortable as it might feel and seem, we must have these conversations.
let's talk about the project that you are going to be making with co-residency. You've been talking about your mother and the work that she does at the Association of for the Age, and then how that inspired you, and then how you're going to be working with these three senior citizens, right? Were they part of the color conversations, the forgotten ones?
Yes, they were, all three of them actually. Um, Two of the ladies are in Wentworth, and the third lady is my mother, who is not in Wentworth, but I thought her experience as a carer in the old age homes would be quite valuable in this project.
So your mom was
Uh,
working there from the beginning of the lockdown, right? She was going to the home and working with the senior citizens, right?
yes,
And the element of isolation that they were experimenting and other things, right?
she was asked by the company to just to stay the entire lockdown, which then was 3 weeks. And yeah, because the COVID-19 it affects the elderly quite seriously. Uh, all the old age homes have decided to completely close their doors. Even now, as things are lifting slowly, the old age homes are still completely closed. No one goes in and no one goes out, which is quite drastic, but understandably so. So my mom experienced everything that the residents were going through, which was on one hand positive because they were all in the experience together, and on the other hand, some of the residents really battled and like didn't really come out of their rooms and needed their food delivered to their rooms, needed to be begged to actually go and clean themselves because they were really upset that they couldn't have any visitors and that they couldn't go for a stroll, around the corner. Yeah, my mom's very emotionally connected with her residents, and they all love her so much, and she always goes above and beyond, the paperwork of what she actually has to do. We'll go and spend 20 minutes with this one and 20 minutes with that one, half an hour with that one. just to make sure that they're okay, you know. And yeah, it's some interesting stories have come out of that. And also, my mom lives in an old age home herself, in the sort of section where the elderly still have a bit of spunk and can still kind of get around and do their own thing. But she's also herself experiencing not being able to leave unless they are going to get groceries at the moment. So yeah, I'm hoping to find some really interesting stories there to bring through in the project as well.
One of the things that you talked about that really resonated with me for different reasons, you want to bring out the resilience of the everyday Black grandmother figure.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this everyday Black grandmother figure to you? Tell me about her. I can tell you why that resonated with me, but I want to hear about you.
Well, first of all, the reason why I said that was because I understand that this project is so specific in terms of who I'm looking at, and because I know the term colored is a derogatory term in many parts of the world, and I think a lot of sort of an international audience will be kind of confused by that, and I will explain that in the project. But I do think in the bigger picture, what we're really talking about is that resilient, non-white grandmother figure, you know. And why I said that is because, well, you know, all over the world, there has been racial atrocities, you know, based on silly racial things. And all over the world, people of color have had to really be strong of spirit and strong emotionally to just face the world, man, and just get by, you know, swallow your pride, get by, encourage your children, even though you're hurt, get by. That's a story that we all know. And even now, I had a conversation with one of the ladies, Auntie Lorin, this morning. She was telling me how the government's done nothing in terms of delivering food supplies to Wentworth, the community, nothing at all. And her son, Dominic, has been providing so many families through his feeding drive called Chow Time. Chow is like a slang word meaning eating time. And she was saying, you know, it's so difficult because the more they help, the more people need help. The numbers are rising, and it's so difficult. But you know what? We have to do it because who is going to do it for us? If we do it, you know, more energy will come towards it. More people will help it, and we'll be able to help people through this project. You know, and it's that sort of resilience, that sort of optimism or perseverance that has gotten us through as people of color. You know, that fighting spirit has gotten us through.
I'm not saying that it's not there in other places, but I dare to say that it's very specific of, you know, like you call it, the everyday Black grandmother figure. And because when you wrote that, I started to think about what that meant to me, and I started to think, okay, my next door neighbor growing up, there's this Black woman that's now on her 90s, and she was such a loving figure in my life. And to this day, she's in her 90s, and my mom is living by herself in her house. And she bakes bread for my mom because she's alone, or she cuts flowers from her garden because, so I started to think about her. And then I always half joke and say that Oprah Winfrey raised me, but it's kind of true because when I was a kid growing up in a broken marriage, she was the only human being who was telling me everything that I needed to know, and no one was telling me. Like, I think if I didn't listen to what she was telling me, I would have ended up a very different person. And I think it ends up with Maya Angelou, who I think there's not a black hole I've been in that her interview, her poetry, her books didn't get me out of. And that's when you said the resilience of the everyday black grandmother figure. I think about all these figures that I've been lucky enough to have in my life. And I think it's really important to have those conversations to unpack them, as you say. So I'm very happy that you're doing this. I want to finish with a quote that I found on your profile. Now, I'll ask you a final question. I don't feel like I need to preach to the world or nothing like that. I just feel like I share what I say. And if listeners get it, they get it. And I never underestimate the audience's ability to feel me. Erick Alonso said that.
Amen. Sister.
I don't know who's going to watch this interview. So let's just, if you could release one thing out there that you want that audience to know, what would it be?
Be who you are to the fullest of your expression. Don't worry what it looks like from the outside. If you feel good being that, be that.
Thank you very much, Lorin. It's been
My pleasure. Thank you. This is a cool interview.
Talk to you soon.